Welcome to Cloud Meets Hybrid, the automation talks powered by XOAP. I'm Mario, and every week we dive into key insights from the world of hybrid IT, multi-cloud delivery, and automation. Today's episode features a special guest. It's Luis Amaro, and he's experienced consultant, strategist, and recognized expert in Citrix and end-user computing, moving right now more to networking stuff. Luis brings deep industry experience, especially in the financial sector, I can say, right? And he's working with organizations across the globe. Yeah, he's in the US, Germany, and maybe somewhere in Croatia. Yeah. So if you guys worked in EUC, VDI, or something in the digital workplace, infrastructure, data center, you are going to want to hear this, what we are talking right now. Luis, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. And let's start with your story. For those who don't know you, who is Luis Amaro? What did you do in your career, and what's leading you in this Citrix world, and where's your journey going on right now?
Well, pleased to be here. Thank you, Mario, for the introduction. Nice to be here with you. Again, my name is Luis Amaro. Was born and raised in Mexico City. Trying to be a long story short, we moved from Mexico City to North Mexico because of the earthquake. And we moved to Saltillo. It's a very small town north of Mexico, close to Monterrey. And that's where I attended university. So I have a degree in information systems. Mm-hmm. And that's what everything started. Before I graduate, like maybe a year before, my professional practices were with a very small family computer shop repair, if you will. So that's where I learned how to, back in those days when you used to patch computers and put antivirus from a floppy and run some command lines and then just make sure there's no viruses. That's how I started. And believe it or not, I like it. I mean, it's different going to school and learn it from the teacher versus we actually doing something in practice. So that was my first step into the computers. And from there, just skyrocket. I finished my degree. I started working with the government in Mexico, and I was in charge of the network and the Windows computers. And from Saltillo, I moved to the U.S. In the U.S., I work in Pennsylvania, Marmon Keystone. That was also a system administrator with Windows NT. So I learned Windows NT. And then from Pennsylvania, I moved to Texas. And in Texas, I spent the last 19 years in Texas in the bank industry, financial industry. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was introduced to Citrix. My first job was the RVFCU, credit union in San Antonio, Texas. And that's what I learned about Citrix. I haven't experience with it. But that's what I like about IT. When it comes to IT, you never know what path is going to take you. You might like something, you ended up working in something else, right? And I was given the opportunity first. I like, hey, you want to learn Citrix? That nobody wants to learn it. There was only a person in charge of Citrix, and I just raised my hand. I like, yeah, I can do that. And that was my first experience, and I really like it. And from there, I mean, you wear different hats. I don't know how other places in the world, but in the US, normally you wear different hats. You were system admin, and you can touch anything from Active Directory to Citrix to cloud, and now cloud, hyperconverge, and Windows servers, operating systems, and workstations, so on and so forth. Currently, pardon me?
From A to Z, everything. Yeah.
That's correct. And sometimes it's hard because you do something, you're good at it, but then you move so quick. I mean, I think in the last 20 years, I see a drastic change in information systems. Everything changed so quick. Whatever you learn today, tomorrow is just almost obsolete. So it is hard to keep up with technology, but at the same time, it's exciting. What else is right around the corner, right? And try to be ahead of the curve, if you will. And
Before we
currently,
go more, oh, sorry, Luis. Before we go more in this part,
yeah,
you already started. Yeah, sorry for that. Currently, you are in which part?
currently, I'm in a small town temporarily. It's called Elhofen. It's north of Stuttgart in Germany.
Germany.
Yeah, my wife and I were looking to a place to rent close to Stuttgart. My place of employment is called Onventis, and is in uh, Fingen, which is southeast of Stuttgart, very close to Stuttgart. And the company does software for procurement, and it's quite successful. So we're pretty busy. It's just my second week. This week is my second week. I'm very excited. I met my team. They're very cool. Because it is an international company, there's no requirement for me to speak German. But out of respect and for my own personal gain, I want to learn some. Some of my some of my coworkers, they're asking me if I want to learn, and I say yeah, but I will feel comfortable at least if I can speak like a 5-year-old kid. If I understand and if I can speak, that's enough for me. English is not my first language, so I learn it. But I spent 25 years in the U.S. I went to school in the U.S. I have a master's degree, and so I learned English in the States. But it is hard at my age. I'm 54, so it's not that easy. But I think I will learn some.
Yeah, pretty cool. Good luck over here in Germany, first of all,
Thank you.
and that's a nice move. So you see a lot of different cultures and countries and companies, of course.
Yeah.
Let's move back a bit in this. Yeah, you started Citrix because nobody wants to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
What would you say in this Citrix ecosystem and end user computing world? What keeps you excited and motivated in these last 10 years?
Well, when it comes about Citrix specifically, it's always challenging. Granted, you might have your infrastructure in place already. You might have 150 users. You have virtual environment from desktops to remote services to publish application, but you still need to maintain it. So the maintenance of the systems are what keep me motivated because there's always something. And like always, any system is vulnerable. So there's always patches to do and make sure that everything you need to test them, and then you need to call some users to test it, and then you need to approve by the board, and then once approved by the board, and then you find a weekend, of course, late at night where you can deploy this system, and then the next day you need to be there early in the morning and make sure everything is working. So it's never a bored. You never get bored. You always some challenges, even if you do the same thing for a period of time. So it's always been exciting.
Cool, cool. When you look at this end user computing market, yeah, and we are talking about published apps, remote desktops, virtual desktops, and so on. What do you think how the market is changing regarding this entire Azure virtual desktop stuff, these cloud technologies? Do you see a perspective for Citrix and this only on-premises solution?
That's a pretty interesting question, Mario. Uh, the place where I came from in the U.S. is a bank, it's an institution, so they're always concerned about security. Uh, when I left the US, everything is in prem uh, because of the risk, and I understand it requires a lot of research, not just for the IT department, but also from the security department. I see a lot of future on cloud, not because everyone is going to the cloud, because I know that it's getting more secure, and that gives security even for a financial institution that does care, or they don't feel like they want to go all the way to the cloud. I know at one point before I left, we were talking about they were going to do a hardware refreshment, and we're talking about hybrid, right? Some on prem, some on the cloud with Azure. But it never. It was just a conversation that we have. I don't know what is going to be the end goal for the bank, but I I think in the last 10 years the cloud is gaining more popularity, and I think it's getting more secure than having your on prem. My personal opinion.
Do you think that it's not only maybe the security part? It's first of all, of course, it's the security part, but the next step is in the question: should we do a hybrid solution, and how we start, how we deploy, how we manage, how we maintain, and how we do the operation? There are a lot of new things for department which has to be learned and executed, and it's hard to start with it. Or what would you say? It's a part of it, maybe.
I would say, but you know what? It is funny that you asked me that, because the last two companies that I worked with, they were not so much concerned about maintaining the systems or do a POC. It is more about cost. To that was my experience on the two companies that I went. I think they rely so much on the people behind the scenes maintaining those systems, like myself and my colleagues. They were not concerned about, oh, what is a brand new implementation? What's going to happen is something. I mean, they were very trusty. They're trustworthy with us, ensuring that they know that we're going to develop the knowledge to maintain. I think it's more of the cost. When it comes about moving something from prem to hybrid or fully to the cloud, or even to a totally new platform, even like pretend going from Citrix to VMview on VMware side, uh, the first thing they do is cost analysis. They want to make sure, like, okay, I have a Citrix, I have a on-prem, I have servers to maintain, servers that I have to refresh every 3-4 years. I have a storage subsystem that I need to collect get my storage from, so on and so forth. I have license for the Citrix per user. I have license for Citrix for remote desktop services, so on and so forth. So having said that, what how to translate onto hybrid and how to translate to fully cloud based. So I, I don't know. I think the two companies that I worked the last two times, that's where they focus more than be worried about the IT people maintaining it.
Hmm? Yeah, of course, that's a good point. Yeah, that's also what we see. Not only the security part, of course, the cost part, and then a part of the cost is also the HR part. Who is responsible for it? Do we need a new team for these new technologies like Azure or different solutions?
Right.
And of course, the hard thing is the automation part. How do we automate
Yes.
different
Yeah.
worlds? Yeah, we can automate on premises, but it would be also nice to automate the same way also our Citrix deployment, our images to Azure, or maybe we say we have no vendor login, and we will not only deploy to Azure. Maybe we open the door also to AWS and be flexible and move our
Right.
infrastructure there where the best costs are at the moment. So if platform A is cheaper than B, then let's deploy there and move
Right.
somewhere else. And I think that's definitely a topic we have seen in different environments. And then I come to my next question.
Yeah.
How do you handle in the past the entire automation stuff? Do you do a manual work or do you have tool sets? How do you look at these entire automation frameworks, platforms, and solutions out there?
Yeah, honestly, I think the last company that I worked for, they were not that many resourceful when it comes about trying to surrender some of the budget to explore other options. So pretty much on the Citrix side, it was manual labor. There were no really that much automation, other than that the automation natively with the Citrix itself, right? When it comes to like creating a master image and then deploy within it. But when it becomes a challenge because not every single desktop requires the same software. So it'll be nice to have the automation and say, okay, you know what? We have the HR department, we have the finance department, we have any department within the organization requires specific sets of software. And that's when it comes to automation. That'll be nice to have. But sometimes, in my case, some of the organizations suffer because the lack of resources, perhaps. I don't know. And they try to, because uh, they already make the purchase of a particular software, in this case, Citrix. They want to get the most out of it without putting more into it. That's how I see it too. But it would be nice to have some kind of automation because sometimes the heavy lifting is quite heavy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, exactly what you say. It's sometimes the lack of resources, of course,
Yeah.
because everybody in a company is pretty busy and have a lot of different tasks. And of course, the business have to run and everything should run smoothly. And nobody
Yeah.
have the time to investigate in new things if there's a priority A to run a business, a business software.
Right.
So focus on topic that we can work as a company. And if we have time, then we can think about optimization. And this is at least
Yeah.
have never time to do such kind of things.
But you know
And
what?
that's
Talking about
why I'm
automation.
asking, because automation.
Yeah. But you know what? Talking about automation, I just remember the last company that I worked for, we encounter many issues with public certificates. The company that I work for, they host multiple external web services, and every year it was a nightmare just to really keep track of all the certificates when they expire. And a certificate, I mean, if the certificate said it's going to expire on May 2022 at 10 o'clock, believe it or not, at 10 o'clock exactly to the dot, that website won't work anymore. We learned by mistake. So it was very hard to keep track of certificates. We engaged a company, which it was our third party company for certificates, Sectigo, and they help us out to put on prem a single Windows server that keeps track of all the public certificates and automated. So this server on prem, it has a connection over to Certigo, and a week before a certificate expired, it requests a certificate to Sectigo. Sectigo deployed the certificate back to the server, and it deploys goes straight to. It could be an internal server, a DMC server, a joint to the domain server, non-joint to domain. It didn't care. I mean, the certificate was just, and if it's a Windows IIS certificate, it joined it to, it bind it to IIS, and it was perfect. So that automation was just beautiful.
That's an amazing example of automation. Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
was perfect.
exactly is that what I mean. So simplify the process, simplify the manual task, and reduce outages. So
Yeah.
if we can automate something, then we should do it. And that's also what we see And as you described, these different business units, different tasks, different applications, different security levels, maybe. And this is exactly what we should consider and have a look at it. How critical do you have seen the raising prices of different vendors like Citrix or VMware and so on? How do you see this situation if you do not automate and you do everything manually for vendor A? We will not name anybody, but you
Yeah.
do everything manually. Then they raise the prices and you can't move because it's pretty hard to move. It's pretty easy. If you automate, maybe you can move because you simplify all processes. How do you see the situation of vendors are raising prices and the customer are sitting there and say, what should I do? What?
Yeah, and I've seen that when a vendor kind of lock you in when there's not that many options. And the only thing that I've seen in personal experience is when you get to that point, you extend the life of something that is no longer fixable. So there've been occasions where you have a piece of hardware or piece of software that is no longer under warranty. There's no longer patches available. There's nothing, and you take the risk. I seen it in large corporations. It happened. And it's sad, but when the money is tight, I mean, what else can you do? I mean, even when I put myself in those shoes in a personal level, I mean, what else can you do, right? If you don't have the means. And sometimes it's hard to find different vendors with kind of the same platform where you can just migrate your environment. Talking about hardware and software, it doesn't matter what it is. And but yeah, little by little, I mean, everything is getting more expensive.
Yeah, that's true. It's getting more expensive. It's getting more complex, as you say in the very beginning. You have more solutions. It's not only the one solution. You can do it with Citrix, Omnissa, Azure Virtual Desktop, AWS Workspaces, and much, much more. Yeah. And that's where the challenge at the end is starting. And the question for the IT engineer is, how can I simplify my process, my delivery, and keep me independent of any change outside so that I can react pretty fast? Doesn't matter if it's Citrix, networking, cloud infrastructure, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the topic is, and that's why we are here at the end, how we can see the change in the entire delivery, management, operational, and optimize it. And if we look at something different, you are going right now to this networking part, right? And you are migrating something from A to B. What do you see over there as the biggest challenge for you to understand? And what would you love to investigate in the next 6 to 12 months? We say, hey, that will be great to see how this will change from the technology perspective.
I think the challenge right now, even for my coworkers, they've been there for a couple years. Those are systems that they inherit, so there's not much documentation. So then that means that you need to invest more time or bring someone on an expert level to really understand everything, because you don't want to pull the trigger and pull a part of equipment that you think you have everything covered, replace it with something new, and then find out a couple of years that they no longer, because whether they were using a legacy system or X, Y, and Z, you don't want to pull the trigger. So you want to be very sure. So that's one thing, right? When you don't have proper documentation, when you need to invest more time that you really need it, and that's challenge number one. When you're talking about automation, I think, Mario, that's our job, to research and go to my CEO and go to my manager and say, "Hey, listen, we're five of us or 10 of us, and we're swamped. We cannot move. We are just firefighters over here. We're just covering fires here, fire there. We don't move forward. In order to move forward, this is what we need, and just a demo, right? And maybe a PowerPoint presentation, and from there escalate it to actual vendor. Bring the vendor in place and just, hey, this is how it works. What are your challenges that you have? It, you know what? We have a Citrix environment. We cannot patch it. We cannot deploy it. We need to deploy applications to specific machines, so on and so forth. Can you help us, right? And but I think it's a CEO or sometimes managers, they don't even have the time. They manage people, they manage resources, they manage time. So I think it's us. We are the ones the in the front of the line. We are the ones researching. We're the ones fixing. We're the ones. So I'm saying we are the ones, system administrator, systems engineer, network administrator, the one to present solutions, right? Sometimes might be a costly solutions, it might not be very costly, but if at the end it's gonna help not just me, but the entire company, why not? Right?
That's an amazing closing sentence. Yeah.
Yeah.
That are great words, and I like it. That's totally true, and that fits exactly in the topic we see. Yeah, all right, Luis. Let's wrap this up with these thoughts. And
Sounds good.
my maybe last question and to you. And if you had just one piece of advice to IT leaders or IT engineers to rethinking their strategy in 2025, what would it be?
Well, that's a pretty good one. I never even thought about it. I think, I think uh, inexpensive or cheap doesn't mean that it's good. You need to invest, right? Just like you invest on your people. I mean, you pay salaries to people. Why? Because you have a resume that people and that person fits uh, specific requirements for the job. This is the same way applies to technology. Exactly the same. Invest, right? This an investment is not a lot of people, especially people on the higher up, they think it's just it's an expense, but it's an investment. At the end of the day, it's an investment. Like anything else, hardware, software, they depreciate and then you have to replace them. But at the end of the day, it's an investment. So that'll be my recommendation. Look into an investment. Look as an investment, not as an expense.
Nice, nice. Great, Luis. Thank you very much. Finally, last but not least,
I,
where people can find you or connect you on LinkedIn. Is it fine that people connect you there?
yes, LinkedIn. Long time ago when I was doing to my master's degree, and I didn't have time for nothing. I mean, I was working 24/7. I was going to school, 2 classes a day, 2 classes a semester. And I used to have Facebook. I don't have it anymore, so it's just LinkedIn. Yeah, you can find me, Luis Amaro. You will see my face, and you can connect with me.
Very good, very good. Luis, thanks again for joining. It's been a real pleasure having you here on my podcast. And to everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, check the description. I've dropped all the links and contact there. Or want me to cover a specific topic next week, yeah, feel free to connect with me or drop me a message. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week and see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Mario.
Bye bye.
Bye.